She started yelling before I even turned the engine off, like full-blown screaming before I had time to shift into park. I hadn't been there for 30 seconds and already, Rhonda was out on her front lawn, bathrobe barely tied, cell phone in the air like it was a holy relic. Her voice somewhere between a car alarm and a pressure washer cut through the morning like I'd just committed a felony by pulling up in my own driveway. "You can't park that here. This is a private community. This is a neighborhood with rules." I leaned my elbow out the window, took a sip of my coffee, and gave her a look I'd been perfecting since the third HOA meeting she hijacked with a PowerPoint about mailbox paint tones. Now, to be clear, I wasn't blocking anyone. I wasn't double-parked or crushing some flower bed. My truck, an old F-350 with enough mud on the tires to make Rhonda twitch, was sitting neatly on the gravel easement that runs along the fence line of my own property. But Rhonda didn't see that. What she saw was something blue-collar and dusty ruining the view from her poor white Lexus SUV. She didn't wait for backup. She called 911 right there in front of me, pacing and waving like she was calling in a hostage negotiation. And within minutes, the beige brigade arrived, HOA board members emerging from their homes like prairie dogs sensing a disturbance in the force, armed with clipboards and righteous indignation. Todd, the HOA president and full-time Rhonda cheerleader, showed up with a printed copy of the HOA bylaws, reading from section 14.6 like it was the Constitution. "You're in violation of the rules concerning oversized vehicles," he said, adjusting his glasses like he was sentencing me to community exile. I didn't flinch. "That gravel's on my land, Todd. Check the survey map. Or, just read the plat line that's been in the county's file since 1994. You could park in your garage," Rhonda snapped, "or build a shed for that thing." I smiled. "Garage is under renovation. And last I checked, you don't own my property or my schedule." It wasn't about rules. It was about control. My truck didn't fit her image of suburban serenity, and nothing infuriated her more than a man she couldn't intimidate. When the cops showed up, they looked exhausted before they even got out of the cruiser. I handed them the deed, a fresh coffee, and the plat map. They reviewed it, nodded, and said I wasn't breaking any laws. No citation. No ticket. Not even a warning. Rhonda looked like someone had told her HOA dues were being raised to fund a monster truck rally. She demanded badge numbers and dramatically threatened legal action. The officers left. Probably so they wouldn't get roped into HOA Civil War, Part 2. I thought that'd be the end of it. I was wrong. The next morning, a notice was duct-taped to my door, HOA letterhead, bold font, full current energy. It claimed I had 24 hours to remove the unsightly vehicle or face enforcement action. Only problem. That clause they cited had been thrown out in a lawsuit after some poor guy got fined for putting a gnome in his yard. So, I left the truck. And the next day, I packed my old utility van behind it. Real rust bucket. It looked like it moonlighted in horror movies. Rhonda nearly passed out. She sent more notes. More threats. Then, on day 4, came a bright red final warning slapped under my windshield. Tow in 12 hours. They were bluffing. The HOA couldn't tow vehicles off private property. But they assumed I wouldn't know that. At 5 a.m. The next morning, I was waiting on my porch when the tow truck rolled in. The guy got out, looked at the stake I'd planted with a laminated plat map zip-tied to it, looked back at my truck, and just shook his head. He got in and drove off. Didn't touch a thing. Later that day, Rhonda parked her Lexus in the exact same spot. Same gravel. Same line. Like it was some kind of power play. I said nothing. Just waited until midnight. Then I rode out my tractor, hooked her car up with a soft chain under the frame, and towed it slow and smooth 20 feet uphill behind my barn gate. Locked it behind a chain link gate, left a note on the windshield, trespassing vehicle relocated for safety. $0 toll fee. $500 stupidity tax. Next morning, Rhonda shrieked like she'd walked barefoot into a hornet nest. She came storming up my driveway, silk robe flapping, phone in both hands. "You stole my vehicle," she yelled. "Morning, Rhonda," I said, sipping my coffee. "Didn't steal anything. Just moved it further onto my land." She seemed nervous. "I'm calling the police." "Great. Ask for Officer Daniels. He's already seen the survey map." She stomped back across the street and called an emergency HOA meeting. Todd came over an hour later, sheepish. "Hey, or any chance we could get the car back without making a scene?" "I already made a form," I said. She signs a release admitting she trespassed and agrees not to harass me again. "I'll bring the car down." He hesitated. That might be hard for her to accept. I smiled. "Yeah, pride's a real bear." Eventually, she signed. Angry scrawl like she was trying to rip through the clipboard. I brought the Lexus back down on the tractor, packed it perfectly, and gave a polite little wave. "No damage," I said. "Not a scratch. Better than any tow truck would have done." "You're insane," she muttered. "Have a great day, Rhonda." I figured that was the end of it. Then came the community garden stunt. They roped off the gravel shoulder with caution tape and a plastic flower, slapped a sign that said Future HOA Beautification Project. It was laughable. So I posted a photo on the HOA message board. "Is the HOA claiming ownership of this area now? If so, I'll see y'all in court." 42 comments by nightfall. Even her usual fans were backing off. One neighbor wrote, "It's a truck, not a meth lab." By morning, I'd mowed down the whole garden with my brush hog. Legally. Tape, flower, sign gone. That afternoon, I hosted a barbecue. Ben from 2 doors down brought ribs. Sheila from next door made sangria. We all laughed about HOA horror stories. Someone suggested I run for HOA president. I did. Turned out, Rhonda wasn't even listed on her house deed, her husband was. Which meant she couldn't serve on the board. I filed for a special election with 10 signatures. Landslide win. Greg stepped down. Rhonda stopped showing up. But not before leaving one last note in my mailbox. No envelope. Just scribbled handwriting, "You ruined my life. I hope the silence keeps you warm." Well, it does. Now, every morning, I sip coffee on my porch, watching the sun rise over a quiet street. No screaming. No threats. Just kids riding bikes and neighbors waving again. And yeah, I planted real tulips on that gravel patch. They bloom every spring, bright, stubborn, and unapologetic. Just like me. So, what do you think? Was I out of line? Or was this about standing your ground when power gets petty? I want to hear what you would have done. Drop a comment, and let's talk about justice, boundaries, and how far is too far when your neighborhood turns into a battlefield.